got one button I had to hit. My name is Miriam Gorgian, and I actually help operate the Executives on Roster platform here at UK. I'm the new ventures manager, and we're going to kind of delve in here and kind of Q&A at the end. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer those. So a little outline of what we're going to talk about today is what exactly is XOR, an overview and the benefits of the platform, the universities and how they stack up currently, so who's on there, and the number of participants that we have. So that means the entrepreneurs and the startups. Also, how do you actually access XOR and use it? What your university has to do to get that access, a little couple screenshots of a walkthrough and how people can log in, how you can add your startups, and how to onboard new entrepreneurs. Also talk about how to match talent on the platform, as well as some lessons learned that we've discovered here at UK and a recent success story. So let's jump right in. So what is XOR? So the University of Kentucky launched XOR in August of 2018, so just over a year ago. And exactly what it does, it's an online portal designed to match early stage startups, so your spin out companies, to executive level talent or mentors, which those are called entrepreneurs. So we've kind of coined the term entrepreneurs in a new way, which could be executives or mentors that are referred to your tech transfer offices. The platform itself is powered by a company called Wellspring, and some of you may already be using a database called Sophia. We use it here in Kentucky, University of Kentucky, to manage all of our tech transfer files and documents. So the actual goal of the platform is to help university startups in need of the business expertise to pair them up with experienced entrepreneurs in a particular industry. And why is that beneficial? It's so that universities can engage an alumni network of successful entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs can in turn review those broad pipeline of startup opportunities, and startups needing an executive can find someone with ties to other nexus in the region. And ultimately, some of these people could become a mentor or executive of that particular company that you're trying to find assistance for. So how does all this match up in terms of numbers? We currently have 2 affiliations, the SEC network and the Midwest region network. Kentucky's on both regions because we manage the platform. And as you can see, we've got Arkansas here, that's currently an XOR user, ranked here in the SEC region. So looking a little bit further into the number of the participants that we have in the 2 networks, we have a total of 97 entrepreneurs on the platform, 53 of those in the SEC, 44 in the Midwest. And then in terms of companies, we have 37 in the SEC and 41 in the Midwest. 12 of those are Kentucky, UK companies on both the SEC and Midwest platforms. So getting into the how-to, how exactly do you use this and get access to it? We have a process here at UK that's worked pretty well. So all the universities pay an annual fee to access the platform. And if there's interest in that, it's the contact is our tech transfer director, which is Ian McClure. He usually receives interest in the platform. And then that usually the next step is to come to me. When the institution has signed on, they contact me and I work with them on getting the login access, and they get a username and a password and a profile that's created and emailed to all the university members and the entrepreneurs, which also includes a 15-minute video walkthrough. So once they get this access, here's a screenshot of the homepage, and you will enter your username and your password, and then you'll log into the platform, and this is usually the next page people will see. So if you would like to do a search for a startup, you can do that in this box here. And then there's another option for an advanced search. There's also global searches. You can also do search by the industry area for the type of company you'd like to look for. Also by the university. So if you're just looking specifically at your institution, you can look for all the startups that you've uploaded. And then to add an organization, meaning your startup company, you do that at the bottom of the page. And there's a link at the bottom under contacts called Add Organization, which takes you to this page. And you would insert the name of the startup, the type of industry, usually it's just the startup company, and then what field they're actually in. So if it's agriculture, energy, or medical, there's a drop-down menu for that. So here's a sample of what a startup profile page would look like. This was one that we did for one of our companies called Smart Rotation. As you can see, they had a logo, which is kind of like called their profile picture, if you will. And the tech transfer office should be the point of contact. And I often say this as a best practice because it's good to get the information filtered through me first. But we've had other universities, they list the particular founder of their company. So it's really up to the institution. And then you fill in the talent that they're needed, the industry that they're in, the year it was founded, and a short description of the company, along with the value proposition of what they have to offer. And once again, it's important to note that for this particular company, Smart Rotation, they were really seeking a business development executive. And there's a drop-down menu where there's a few other options. So there's one for like chief financial officer, a chief management officer, and so on. So what's it really mean to onboard a new entrepreneur? We get this question quite a bit when people are trying to get new applications and build up their entrepreneurs in their profile for their institution. And just some general rules of thumb. Generally, these entrepreneurs have either run a startup at some point, raised some capital, or had been an executive in a specific industry for 15 years or more, or they have some kind of alumni affiliation with a very good recommendation by a participating university. And then ultimately, they have to have the willingness and availability to play an executive management role for a startup. So sometimes with entrepreneurs, they have a pretty busy life, which is fine, but they may have too many hands in the cookie jar, as the saying goes. So they really need to have some availability if we're going to put them on the platform to play a role to running a startup or mentoring one. So here's an example of the application form for new entrepreneurs. On the left-hand side, there's the Midwest, and the SEC is very similar. Here on the right-hand side, the information is mostly the same. The only difference is we try to distinguish between the two regions with the logos. And then to access any of these applications, of course, you can contact me, and I'll have my information at the end of the presentation. We also have email addresses that you can send a request to access the forms here at the bottom of this screen. So how would you search for these people in the platform? There's a contacts banner at the top where we originally had the home page, and you would click that to search for entrepreneurs. And then there's a drop-down menu where you would select the word entrepreneur, and you would get a full list of all the entrepreneurs available in the platform. And now that you have all this, how do you actually put people together? So this is where it gets pretty interesting. So the first step, based on current experience, has really been to do an interview with your startup. Number one, always sit down with the startup and talk about where they are in the stage of their company. So on the far left-hand side, we have funding. Have they received any federal funds? Have they raised any private monies or capital? What's their current licensing status? So they're in the middle. Have they disclosed to their tech transfer offices, and are they at a point where they can really think about bringing on executive level talent or mentors? And also the stage of discovery. Have they really identified their target markets that they're going at? Have they completed any accelerators? And do they really know what their customer needs? Because if they are just doing research, it may be too early. The next step back to stage is to know where they are. So in relationship to the funding and the licensing and the discovery piece, it really is going to answer one of these three categories. Are they just in the research phase? Are they in the proof of concept? Are they lab testing? If they're somewhere in the middle, maybe they've proven the results to be effective and received some federal grants like SBIRs or STTRs. And if they're farther along, they may be ready to scale. So they may have proven that the research works in those consumer markets, and they really want to talk about having some strategic partners to help them get a little further. So the last step is really understanding what kind of entrepreneur is needed based on the first two steps. Once you get those questions answered, do they really need an executive? So do they need someone to run the company and raise money? Or is it really more of like a mentor, someone to help guide the company through some startup hurdles? Maybe they need some FDA assistance, or maybe they need to talk to specialized legal counsel. And if that may be the case, they may just want a consultant. So over in the far right, it could be just a person specific to the needs that they need in the next 60 to 90 days, which could mean a contract, a short-term contract. But in order to do this, the tech transfer offices really need to be proactive. So the due diligence after the initial assessment of the startup is discovered, and searching for potential matches in the platform, it's really got to be well known of what they need and what their goals are before calling any of the entrepreneurs. So I kind of keep a running log of applications of people that maybe I'd like to reach out to, but I also try to keep in mind what stage of the company is in before reaching out to those people. And also just staying engaged with your startups. Maybe they don't have needs at the time, or maybe they're still trying to flesh out where they are. Something that might be nice to do is creating a monthly newsletter or an email blast to promote these services the XOR offers. And sometimes hosting maybe an info session or a lunch and learn. So a webinar like the one today would be very informative. And so what have we really learned by working with XOR and our companies, and how have we been successful at doing this? The process definitely requires very good communication and clearly addressing the startup's needs from the very beginning. And then finding a match requires a lot of upfront conversations with the entrepreneur and the startup, and really just the time commitments that are going to be involved, especially if they have other priorities in their life at the moment. And it's just good to be direct, knowing that if certain entrepreneurs are traveling a lot or have other jobs or in other time zones, it may not be a good fit. And also, if the startup is applying to a grant and kind of saying, hey, I really don't have time because I'm working on getting grant money, that also is going to impact the match for the company. So they may have to put it on pause. So we had a success story around late spring, early summer. The company Smart Rotation that I showed earlier in the presentation, she was a CEO and a local community entrepreneur. Her name is Madison Hartoon. And she was developing an app for gymnastics, and she actually was kind of an expert in this area. She was a gymnast, and one of the problems she was faced with was scheduling space in the gym. And so she created this app that would help people schedule those areas so they could practice in the gym. She was matched with a Texas A&M entrepreneur named Michelle Klum. And Michelle had already had a successful exit with a company called Veridesk. She was working with a spin-out company with Texas A&M and was just really interested in the health and wellness space. And so this opportunity seemed like a really good fit, but also good timing. And she was really looking for the next startup to assist. Knowing that, Michelle had asked for equity in the company since Smart Rotation couldn't really offer a salary at the time, and it just so happened to work out between the two of them. So that's pretty critical, because sometimes with startups they don't always have the ability to offer funding, but they can offer equity. So just to kind of summarize, TTOs really need to be proactive in working with the startups, asking questions, knowing the company's goals, and just to better understand their path forward can really help with the matching process. And just keep in mind that matching definitely takes time and a lot of, I call it sleuthing, where the pairing really needs to make sense. So if people aren't on the same page, it may not work out for the time being. So it just takes some phone calls and some initial interviews in order for everyone to kind of get a good feeling for where things are going. So some other sleuthing that I did was Arkansas Tech Transfer Office contacts are Dave Hinton. He is part of the Technology Ventures Division at University of Arkansas, and I've provided his email address here. I've also talked to Brian Rink. He's the Associate Director for University of Arkansas, but the Systems Division of Ag over there, and provided their email and phone numbers as well. So please feel free to reach out for them if you have any startups or potential technologies that could benefit from XOR, because Arkansas is definitely on the platform, and we would love to see more startups get involved. So I'd like to thank everybody for their time today. If you have any questions or just want to pick my brain on these things, my contact information is here. Pam, I'll definitely send you the PowerPoint if you'd like to share it. And this session's also being recorded, so I'll provide that link to Pam as well.
So Miriam?
Yes, ma'am.
This is Nancy UAMS. I actually have two questions. The first one, of course, we have the University of New Mexico and Utah, neither of which are really Midwest or SEC. How would they engage with this particular platform?
So, hi Nancy, nice to meet you. I know we've talked on the phone. Yeah, so I heard University of Utah, and what was the other one?
University of New Mexico.
Okay, so I know that Ian is currently trying to work on a West Coast region, XOR, but I would be more than happy to engage with them. I know he's actively trying to talk to University of Arizona, which is hopefully going to be the hub for the West Coast region. So then that would mean Utah and New Mexico would work through their tech transfer office. But I'm definitely happy to facilitate any conversations with both of those schools.
And my second question is a little bit different. So since UAMS is an academic health sciences center, a lot of our startups are focused on products that require going through the FDA approval process. And when you talk about early stage, mid stage, or later on, how would you put those type of companies in terms of readiness for this program, since a lot of the companies stay in what would be research mode, if you will, for a long time?
That's an excellent question, and I think all of us totally know that FDA, with anything in medical or drugs or devices, it can take a really, really long time to move through that process, and it's really expensive. So I guess I don't have the best answer, but as far as the stages go, I would say getting federal dollars really proves out that proof of concept. And then once they kind of get to that point, I think then early stage investors really start to look at the viability moving forward, because FDA is just, it's so rigorous. And then if they make it that far through the process, that at least takes 8 to 10, sometimes 15 years So I think my recommendation would be really pushing the SBIR program and trying to get them through more of the commercialization stages, and then hopefully they can get to a point where FDA can, there could be some assistance for FDA, and that might even be on the platform. I know that with all the applications I've looked at, there's several people in the list that have FDA experience. It could provide some consulting or mentorship.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just wondering how many mentors you have and how you identify them.
Yeah, that's a really good question too. So they don't come flagged in as mentors initially. We kind of have, since this is all still within like a year time span, kind of bake them all as entrepreneurs. But honestly, that's just a phone call. I could probably go through the list and ask, someone who had an FDA background or experience going through that process and say, hey, would you be willing to be a mentor? And then the next response might be, okay, well, what's the time commitment? And then go from there. But a lot of these people are willing to kind of donate, I would say, 1 or 2 hours, like a pro bono type thing, where they would have a phone call or maybe a Zoom meeting, and then see how that relationship builds from there. These are really good questions.
I have a question regarding the cost. You mentioned there's an annual fee of some sort, and is that the cost that the BioVenture pays or the startup company pays?
That's correct. So the annual fee is based on a subscription to XOR, which the university pays, and that price tag is a $5,000 licensing fee. And after, I believe, a year, once you're in the platform, I think that price gets discounted.
Any other questions or other questions from the other sites?
No question.
Okay, well, I really want to thank everyone for joining me on a Friday afternoon. And once again, I'm happy to provide any assistance or do a walkthrough of the actual platform itself. And my information is here, and I'll definitely send this to Pam and provide the link to the recording.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thanks so much, everyone. Have a good Friday and a good weekend.
Thank you.
Everybody will be sure to log on and do a little survey so we can track attendance. Get things out. Appreciate it.